Islam. Peace Hotep. Today is 7th of May 2013. Let's get the bills out the way. First and foremost, this Sunday, the Moorish historian, Brother Hakeem Bey, Canaanland Moors presents Skype, the social and economic uplift of the Moorish nation, a new vision and new paradigm for new Moors. May 12, 2013, 4 p.m. Admission 20 debt notes, and it's going to be at the Moor Science Temple of America, Lecture Hall, 1704 Eglinton Avenue West. So I want to say honors to Hakeem Bey and the Moorish paradigm for presenting, always presenting, the realness for the fam. Just wanted to go through some words. If anybody uses Etymology online dictionary, whenever we put words in there, always check all the words that come up listed, because all the words are relative to that word that you put in, right? So when I put in Moorish, I just want to go through some of the things that came up when you put in Moorish in Etymology online dictionary. So Moorish, adjective, of or pertaining to Moors, mid-15th century, from Moor plus ish. Moorish dance, mid-15th century, Mores das, Moorish dance, from Flemish Morisque dans, from Old French Morwa, Moorish, Arab, black, from Moor, M-O-R-E, M-O-O-R, Moor, M-O-O-R. Unknown why the English dance was called this, unless in reference to fantastic dancing or costumes. Italian Moresco, a related dance, literally Moorish. German Morisque dance, French Moresque. Arabesque, noun, 1610s, Moorish or Arabic ornamental design, from French arabesque, 16th century, from Italian arabesco, from Arabo, Arab, with reference to Moorish architecture, as a ballet pose, first attested 1830. Musical sense in reference to an ornamented theme is from 1864, originally the title given to Robert Schumann to one of his piano pieces. Blue blood, 1834, translating Spanish sangre azul, claimed by certain families of Castile as uncontaminated by Moorish or Jewish admixture, probably from the notion of the visible veins of people of fair complexion. Keep blue blood in mind, because we're going to touch on something a little bit later with that. Alhambra, place of the Moorish kings in Granada, Spanish, from Arabic Alcalat. Alhambra, the Red Castle, from Fem of Amuru, red, so called for the sun-dried bricks of which its outer walls were built. Mozarab, M-O-Z-A-R-A-B, noun, assimilated Christian in Moorish Spain, one who was allowed to continue practicing his religion in exchange for political allegiance. From Spanish Mozarabe, would-be Arab, from Arab Mostarab, from a desiderative verbal form of Arab. Morris, surname and masculine proper name, in some cases representing Maurice, common form Morris, M-O-R-I-C-E, or a nickname. Moorish, for onme, for one who is swarthy, as a style of furniture, wallpaper, etc. 1880, in reference to poet and craftsman William Morris. Love apple, noun, tomato, 1570s, corresponding to French pomme d'amour, German Liebelsaffel, but the reason for the term remains obscure. One guess is that it is a corruption of Italian pomo de mori, or Spanish pomme de moro, literally Moorish apple. Castile, medieval Spanish county and later kingdom, from vulgar Latin Castilla, From Latin castella, plural of castellum, castle, fort, citadel, stronghold. See castle, so called in reference to the many fortified places there during the Moorish Wars. The name in Spanish is said to date back to 800. Related Castilian as a fine kind of soap. In English from the 1610s. Grenada, West Indies island. Discovered by Columbus, August 15, 1498, and named by him Concepcion. The place later was renamed for the Old Spanish kingdom or city of Granada, which is said to be from Latin granatum, pomegranate, either from fruit grown in the region or some fancied resemblance. Others connect the name to Moorish carnata. The Roman name Iliberis is said to be Iberian and represent cognates of Basque Erie, town, Berry New, and survive the name of the surrounding Sierra Elvira. So just something to check out. Next thing we have, the cardiopad is a portable touchscreen device that enables heart examinations such as the electrocardiogram to be performed at remote locations while results of the tests are transferred wireless to specialists who can interpret them. 24-year-old Arthur Zhang invented the cardiopad. And then this is Arthur Zhang. Right?
I seen him on Facebook.
Yeah. Right. So this is Arthur Zhang that created the cardiopad. And he's from Cameroon. So when we put common sense in and we say there's no such place across the Atlantic called Africa, all that's Asia, this is proof right here. Yeah. That all over there is Asia. North Asia and South Asia. Asia Nor, Asia Sur. Like the Moorish elders teach.
Yeah.
There's no way this man's from Cameroon and his name is Zhang, and then it's a brother, and he's not Asiatic.
Yeah.
Right? He's not an African. He's from Cameroon, and his name is Zhang. And then when you research the name Zhang, it'll tell you all the different countries on that side that have the name Zhang, not just Chinese. Right? Well, yeah, that, since we're speaking about that, this was Friday, May 3rd. So Friday, May 3rd, Friday, May 3rd. Man defends son in TV interview. Says he has never had contact with Islamic radicals. We were shocked. Everyone knows my son. He's never fought anyone. Amir Ismagulov, father of Azamat Tazagov, the Boston bomber guy. So this is pops. Right?
Yeah.
Again, Asiatics, right? Just to show that Asiatics. This is supposed to be the Boston bomber guys that, you know, are from some European country or whatever. This is pops, right? And just remember, you know, when we check the records, they didn't call them black or yellow or nothing like that. They called them by their national names, right? 1 second. Alhaji Grunshi was the first soldier in British service to fire a shot at the First World War. Alhaji Grunshi returned fire. The first soldier in British service to fire a shot in the war. On 8th of August 1914, the commander of the police, Hopman Failer, was shot after climbing a tree to get a better view of the Gold Coast Regiment, and resistance collapsed. German technicians destroyed the Kamina transistors on 24th of August, and Togoland surrendered to the British and French on 26th August 1914. Grunshi survived the war, having fought in 3 African campaigns, and as a lance corporal was mentioned in dispatches on the 5th of March 1918. On the 13th of March 1919, now a sergeant, he was awarded the military medal for his part in the East African campaign. Alhaji Grunshi, right? And this is Alhaji Grunshi. And once again, if you look at his features or whatever, you can see that he's Asiatic, right? Asiatic, brother, first person to fire in World War I. Not a black man, not an African, Asiatic. And you know, we see he's wearing his fez tassel up and all that, right? Just so you could get a good look at the brother, look at the features. Right? Islam to Brother Omori for that one. Now, before we go into today, we just want to finish up a couple things from the weekend, because we had the Nuwapians and Moors class. So one of the things I wanted to touch was when we see pictures of Nuwapians, right? We always see pictures of Nuwapians with a little tarbouche like this, with an ankh on the front. Or they have the full fez like these ones, but they always have markings and they always have tacked down tassels. Right? So if Dr. York L was moving away from Moorish science, or you know, you know, he stopped teaching that, like Nuwapians told me that person, right? Oh, well, he doesn't teach that no more, so we're not going to teach that. Or, you know, well, that was back then when he first started teaching, and now he's, you know, from some other planet or whatever. All right. If that's the case, then how come he's sitting here in the trial, right? Forget about this guy, because, you know, when I bring that up to him, well, you know, he has a man standing right next to him as his lawyer. Well, no, that's not his lawyer. That was a court-appointed lawyer or whatever. Okay, fine. So forget that guy, right? If he's who he says he is, right? How come he's not wearing that fez that Nuwapians wear with all the markings on it and the tack down tassel? If he doesn't push any more science and he's not a Moor and Nuwapians aren't Moors, right? It's you know, it's treasonous.
Yeah.
It's treasonous. It's conspiracy for people to say that, you know, especially Nuwapians who say they love him and they're going to go out and picket and march and stand in the rain or whatever for him, that they're going to lie to people and say that he's not a Moor when he's wearing a Moorish fez right here, right? Wearing a Moorish fez, you know. And here's another one, just so you don't think we're just making up stuff, right? Here's another one, and then in this one he's wearing the black fez, which means that he's the law, right? Okay, you can't say that he's not a Moor, and that he wasn't telling Nuwapians that they're Moors, because like we read in the books on the weekend, every reference that he made when he was talking to Nuwapians, he called himself Moorish American, right? I'm Moorish American, card holding member, and all that, right? And he said that he's bringing the teachings of Noble Drew Ali to uplift his Nubian, Nuwapian brothers and sisters. So that means the information that you have is void. It's obviously not the information you're supposed to be on if he's bringing Noble Drew Ali's information to save the people or help save the people, right? And again, we got to stress the point that the Holy Tablets, which is the holy book of the Nuwapians, right, has the circle 7 in it, and the first chapter of the book is the circle 7, right? And that's the first chapter, and they're going to skip over that, and they're going to go deep into, you know what I mean, the middle of the book, the back of the book, pictures of Moses and pictures of, you know, black Jesuses and all that type of stuff. Show, you know, our people and whatever, we got to show this, but you're not going to study the circle 7, the first chapter, right? And if you do anything, you know, logically you start at 1. You start at the beginning and then you make your way up, right? As well, we're going to go to, right, for all the Nuwapians out there who like to play the game of well, you know, where do you get that book, and you're not supposed to have that book is only for, you know, whoever. All right, well, here's the best kept secret, right? Mum's the word, right? And this is supposed to be, you know, ancient Egyptian order book that, you know, outsiders can't get or whatever, right? But you can get books, right? There's Nuwapians out there who know that they're Moors, and they don't play the hiding information and all that stuff, right? So we're going to go to page 93, and then there's a picture right there, right, of a brother masked up with the turban on, holding a scimitar, and then the bottom reads, "First Berber Moor in full black attire with sword." So he's letting you know that Berbers are Moors, right? He's letting you know that he reps them because they're in his book, so it's not, you know what I mean, it's not anything to, right? And not only that, but that there's 2 of them in there. So he said it twice, Berber Moors, right? Said it twice. Second Berber Moor in full black attire with sword, right? Berber Moor. So to say that he didn't teach this stuff, or that it was old, or, you know what I mean, is treasonous. Treasonous, right? And then here's another picture, right? The fez, you know, they call it tarbush, right? Now, if everybody that claimed he touched some little children or whatever, he molested them, right? And they took away, they recanted their statement, right? The real deal, and I was talking with a Moor who's Nuwapian about this, right? The reason really why they really went at him the way they went at him, right, is he was exposing everything about Freemasonry. Because what was he doing? He was using Moorish nationality to claim everything that we taught the Masons. And he was taking everything, right? If we go to, right, Sons of the Green Light, there's another one of the books that, you know, you're not supposed to get if you're out of the loop. There's an insider book, right? Sons of the Green Light. Go ask the Nuwapian for this. See if they're going to give it to you or sell it to you or whatever, right? Just know that there's Nuwapians out there who are Moors, and they don't hide info. They're very open to giving up the info, right? So Sons of the Green Light, right? And this book is pretty much the Circle 7, just talking about, you know, the different chakras and, you know, let's just take a quick. All right. This is a sacred document upon which you must vow silence, right? So again, right, making a claim, taking all this Freemasonry, you know, look at the checkered floor and all that, like, yo, he was taking everything back. He was taking it all back and putting it under the ancient Egyptian order, right? AEO. And he was the supreme grand hierophant. Anubi Rakpata, Neter Aferti Atumre. He was claiming everything back. And then that's why they went at him, how hard they went at him. Because statements that people made, they were recanted. So there's no need to give a man 135 years if he didn't do it. Exactly. Right? So that there must be some inner thing going on, right? On top of like if you Google Malachi York, what was it again? Let's Google Malachi York. There should be a thing that comes up that has all the credit cards that they found on the land. Okay. Right? You know, and it ain't no thing, you know what I mean? You use the straw man, you filed UCC, whatever, right? Okay. But all these credit cards that he had just said Malachi York on it. No all rights reserved, no UCC codes on it or whatever, which means, you know, you can't say that you're, so in this book you're saying you're Anubi Rakpata, right? But then you have a picture on here when you were Imam Isa. Yes. And then you have a picture like this. Then here you're saying that you're Black Eagle and you're head of the Yamasee tribe. And then some people call you L, and some people don't say L, right? Yeah. Then, you know, then in this book you have it's a different name, and you know in the Circle 7 you have a different name. Yeah. Like, that's contempt. So there's numerous avenues that they could have trapped him up, just because, right? Or what the brother Nev was breaking down, that, you know, if you study Malachi York, everything that he does, there's a reason behind what he's doing, right? Yeah. And I remember there was an audio, I don't know if it's on YouTube or whatever, there's an audio called Mask of God, right? That Dr. York did. And in this audio mask, like personally I think that was one of the best audios ever, because he was pretty much just straight telling them, you know, you're God or whatever, stop following me, playing around like I'm somebody. Yeah. I'm not nobody. It's all about you putting on the mask of God and you manifesting whatever you need to manifest, because I brought you everything that I can't do nothing else for you. There's nothing else I could do for you, right? And then again, you know, hit up some Nuwapians. The audio is called Mask of God, and it's a picture of, the cover is a picture of either him wearing an Egyptian crown like the King Tut mask, or it was a King Tut mask, right? Mask of God. And he's basically just dropping it on him, right? It's a good listen. It's a good listen, right? So today we're dealing with it's not racism, it's your dead carcass. Because people have to come to the realization that the first issue is status, right? Just got off slapping some people on Facebook because, you know, they're starting the racist stuff with what do you say next?
Where can I park?
Just right in the side. Okay, good. Right? They're starting the racist thing with Lauryn Hill now, right? Yes. That she now has to do a 3 months or something like that because of some 500,000 that they found that she didn't, whatever, right? When her name's Hill, right? Not only that, you went around the world calling yourself Fuji, which is short form for refugee, right? For all these years. And now they're calling you on it because, you know, Fugees, refugees, if we go back to Katrina, refugees don't get respect.
Yeah. Wow.
Because you're stateless. You're a stateless person, right? Not only that, so they're putting her in prison for 3 months.
3 months, yeah.
Right? But the deal that she made with Sony, the devils of Sony, that Michael Jackson came and
Signed back with them
right?
again.
She signed up with Sony. After Michael Jackson told you that you guys devil, don't follow these guys, leave these guys alone. Their whole stuff's gonna crash. She went back, she signed with them. She signed with them to do 4 songs or 5 songs or something. So Sony could pay the government $1 million or whatever, so she doesn't have to do no jail time. And now she's doing jail time. And I bet, and I know she signed a contract, didn't reserve her rights or nothing like that. You know what I mean? On top of that, it's in the name of Hill, so the Hill family has jurisdiction. And if we check the research, bet you, judge or prosecutor, somebody in there, somebody that has the Hill name, and they're just in the back playing power of attorney.
Yeah.
Just like how when you have the child protective CAS people, you know, when they jack somebody's youth, they claim to be child power of attorney over that property, not over that being, over that property. And then we go back to 1857, Dred Scott and Judge Taney said, you know, black man has no rights that white man is bound to respect, you know, whatever. And everybody's a racist. Oh yeah, nah, those guys are racist. They you know, he's a free slave or whatever. He's a free black. You can't do that to free black. What do you mean? His property, his name's Scott. Just like her name's Hill. Just like this guy's name is Snipes. You know? But he's smart. He did his time.
Yeah.
So you keep the money. So you don't have to pay nothing. Right? He said, okay, yeah, I'll do time. I'll pay no fine. I'll just do the 3 years, and then you guys just have to get off me. You know, he got some gray hairs when he was up in there. But, you know.
Wasn't he like, wasn't he working with Dr. York?
Yeah.
Or something like that?
Amin Ra
He was
Films.
buying land for them, or?
Amin Ra Films.
So
Yeah.
Snipes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was on it.
Wow.
He was on it. And it's crazy too. Enough people were on the land. Like entertainers and stuff like that. Enough people were on the land.
Okay.
But again, it comes back to that same thing of, you know, what is it really that you're getting involved in? Because if, like, you know, they might put certain things out in code, right? So like if we look at Wesley Snipes, you know, we look at Blade. You know what I mean? Blade was, you know, about the Moors, you know, civilizing the Europeans. That's what it was about.
Yeah.
You know, and then getting rid of the enemy. You know, obliterating the enemy, right? Then he had his little, you know, Euro brethren, you know what I mean, who was down with the, you know, he was, you know, and assisted. You know what I'm saying? But there should be, you know, a national, you know, press conference when these people are on those levels. If you're on the land with Dr. York,
Yeah.
you should have had press conference. Let the whole world know, yeah, you know what, I back this man. Right? I back him. Yeah, I put down 50 million so we could build some stuff or whatever you put down.
Yeah.
Right? So people sort of, the dead carcasses out there could see that, oh, well, okay, even he's on it or whatever. You know what I mean? That's like the same thing with the music.
Yeah.
You know? The David Farrell was dropping. You know? The Diplomats' ego was a Heru
Yeah.
before it became an eagle.
Yeah.
But if you don't know David Farrell, you're not gonna know that.
Exactly.
You just think that, oh yeah, those guys, you know, the eagle, that's just their logo, and you know what I mean? You know that those mans were actually coming on some heights in the beginning, where they were gonna use a Heru head as their logo. You know what I mean? You look at Brother Jabbar was talking about the falconeers, you know, and the Moors who were using birds of prey in order to, you know, get the message out or go retrieve information or whatever, you know what I mean? And they have the hawk on the hand and whatever. What was Ghostface? Ghostface thing was the big thing with the hawk, with the big hawk on the hand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sending signals or whatever, but if you don't study, if you're a dead carcass, then you don't know about those stuff. You just think this guy's flaunting some money thing, so he has a bangle with a go, you know, and no, it's like, you know, like I always thought about it, right? Like, why does he have an eagle on his hand?
Yeah.
Like, what kind, like,
That brought me back to Wonder Woman.
you know what I mean?
Didn't Wonder Woman have
Oh yeah, she had the bangles, right? The bangles, right. You know, like why does he have this? You can't even put your shirt over that. Like, you know what I mean?
So cool, Joe. You think they should let the people know?
Why not? But you know,
Remember I was talking to
they must be protecting something.
Same thing I was still talking to when I was on Facebook, and it was, I don't know which pillar it was, red or blue, one of them.
Yeah.
And they were talking about Rihanna and all the entertainers and rapping the symbols,
Yeah.
and they're saluting them.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yo, they're ripping the symbols, but then they're saying something totally different. That's confusion.
Right. Right. Tell the people what it is. You know what I mean? Like, why you got that tattoo for, Rihanna? Like, why you got it? You know what I mean? That's like I was even thinking about that too with the whole tattoos, because I was reading this article with Tech from Smith and Wesson has a big chief on his back tattoo.
Wow.
Right? And then you know, thinking back, and then you think back to the Operation Lockdown video when they're all dressed like Indians or whatever, and you're like, what? Why are these guys dressing up like Indians? You know, back then you're just like, you know, why are you guys dressing up like Indians or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, what are you trying to say something, or you guys are just bored and you just you know, wanted to make an innovative video and nobody did that before, so yo, let's dress up like Indians and make a video. But yo, they're telling you, we're the Aboriginal indigenous people.
It's crazy though, man.
You know what I mean? We're the Aboriginal indigenous people. And if we're the Aboriginal indigenous people, there's two ways that the European is going to get power. One is by us not claiming to be that, and claiming to be all these other stuff, Hills and Snipes and, you know what I mean? Right? Dipset and whatever. Right? And two, Doctrine of Discovery. Right? So, and all this is just playing, you know, because don't forget, right, when we started, we were talking about Chief Black Eagle. Right? Chief Black Eagle of the tribe of Native Americans, Seminole Washita Mound Builders, known as Malachi Zadok L, President of the United Nuwapian Nation of Moors, the Supreme Grand Master, Naya Malachi Zadok York L. Right? Everybody's telling us that we're the indigenous people. Documented fact that we're the indigenous people. Right? So the Doctrine of Discovery.
Empress last name is Eagle, you know.
Yeah? U.S. Supreme Court.
Grandmother and father's
Johnson versus McIntosh, 1823. Doctrine of Discovery, 500-year-old idea of claiming new lands. European explorers landing, planting flag and cross, and claiming new lands for their country. In 1452, Nicholas V issued the papal bull Dum Diversus, granting the King of Portugal the right to reduce any Saracens, quote-unquote, pagans, quote-unquote, and any other unbelievers to hereditary slavery. Dum Diversus legitimized the colonial slave trade that began around this time with the expeditions by Henry the Navigator to find a sea route to India, which were financed with African slaves. This approval of slavery was reaffirmed and extended in his Romanus Pontifex of 1455. Pope Nicholas V and slavery. Nicholas issued the bull Dum Diversus in response to a request from the Portuguese monarchy, King Alfonso V was conferred the right to attack, conquer, and subjugate Saracens, pagans, and other enemies of Christ, wherever they may be found. It gave title over all lands and possessions seized and permitted the Portuguese to take the inhabitants and consign them into perpetual slavery. Right? So again, when we're doing the searches etymology searches on Etymology Online Dictionary, when you plug in a word and you get what you're looking for, there's going to be other words on the bottom, right? All those other words are relative to that word that you plugged in, right? So when you put in Saracens in there to know what Saracens are, it's going to tell you, it's going to eventually lead you to Moors and Muslims, and it might go to like Sufis, and it would go to like all these other things that are synonymous with Saracens, right? So anytime we see, if it's things dealing with papal bulls, you know, wars between Muslims and Christians or whatever like that, you're gonna find that Saracens, pagans, anybody who was against the Pope were Moors.
Okay.
Right? And then everybody else were
just there.
We're just there.
Yeah.
Right?
But even like Hannibal going against Rome.
Right.
Like always against Rome.
It's always against Rome.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the theme.
It's funny.
Yeah, that's the theme. It's always against Rome.
Rastafarian is it.
Yeah,
and
right.
All the tribes have the same mentality.
It's the same mentality, right? That Rome, you know, Babylon is burning down and all that, right? And it's we have to remember that it's not another term is infidel. Infidel is a term that you see a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Infidel. When they say infidel, right? Infidel, they talk about Moors. Right? Okay? So all these papal bulls, you know, Christendom versus Islamic whatever and all that, is the bottom line is Moors versus Albions, or Moors versus Europeans, or modern Europeans, right? And the Doctrine of Discovery sets up the slave trade, which is again Moors versus Christendom, but in a different, with a different appearance, right? To get people, you know, deeper into the misconception about slavery and what it is or whatever, because, you know, as soon as they see, they're gonna say African slave and, you know, white slave master, right? And then they stop there, and then they're gonna see Saracens and Pope, and then they think that those two things have no relation, right? When everything is connected right across the board, it's all connected. From ancient times to right now, it's always been Moors versus these people from the caves, right? The geographical area of the concession given in the bull is not explicit, but Richard Raiswell argues that the use of the terms pagans and other enemies of Christ indicates the scope of the bull was applicable to the newly discovered lands along the west coast of Africa, and that the ambiguity of the texts were such that it encouraged the Portuguese to extend their explorations further afield. So the idea of the bulls and claiming that people are pagan, infidel, or whatever was so that anywhere they go, they can say, okay, that's infidel, and then take their land. Right? Oh, okay, that guy is where, you know, so it would jump. It was you know, it was the Moors, and then they put a bull that, okay, well, you know, we're no longer gonna call the Moors, we're gonna call them Saracens, Spanish, you know, infidels, blah blah, whatever. Then when they go to the next territory, okay, well, you know, we're not gonna call them this, we're gonna call it, and then they keep adding. But you know, it never stopped. Like when they say it only stopped at Moors, right? As far as calling us something, right? When they said Saracens, and then they put up a paper bull saying, okay, we're not going to call them Saracens now, we're going to call them something else. They still use Saracens. But when it comes to Moors, like they stop using that altogether, that term, right? Stop calling us that, because you know that directly connects us. That's the name, right? And when you go through all the history, like especially when you go through like the history of the Spanish Inquisition, depending on who's telling it, you're not gonna see the term Moors in there. They're gonna say Muslims and Jews. They kicked the Muslims out of Spain. They kicked the Muslims out of Spain. They kicked the Jews out of Spain to make it seem like it's a religious war, not a status war. Because ultimately it's a status war. Right? Because the one with no status is the one that's going to get conquered.
Exactly.
And the one with status is the one that's doing the conquering. But then when they say the Moors conquered, right? Everybody who tells the story about the Moors conquered Spain, the Moors conquered Italy, the Moors conquered whatever, it's always that they brought something. Well, they're conquering, like why are they bringing stuff?
Why is it flourishing?
Yeah, why is it, you know, oh yeah, the Moors were the best, most beautiful conquerors, and they built bathhouses, and they built
Vikings.
you know what I'm
Vikings never made nothing.
They never made nothing.
Destroyed everything.
They just destroyed.
Yeah.
Right? Strictly destroyed. Right? Right? And then again, it's really a status war.
Yeah.
Right? Get you to give up your status
and get your resources.
And take your resources. Take your land. Take your whatever it is that they have for you. Right? So according to Raiswell, 1997, he expressed enthusiasm when recalling the number of slaves that had been captured, brought back to Portugal, baptized, and expressed his hope that either populations of these newfound lands would be converted. Military force rather than peaceful evangelization. Notes military force rather than peaceful evangelization. Stogre notes that this bull, perhaps in part due to misleading information provided by the Portuguese, introduced the concept of military force rather than peaceful evangelization for missionary purposes, and that it applied to lands that had never previously been subject to Christian ownership, subsequently leading to the brutal dispossession and enslavement of the indigenous population. Right? So, and this is how that we don't tie stuff together, right? Like we don't see it as a grafting, like even on our side with the history, it's a grafting of history, like it's layers of history upon layers upon layers upon layers, right? So in one term they're talking about, you know, enthusiasm when recalling the, you know, number of slaves that were captured or whatever, but then here they're talking about, you know, the brutal dispossession and enslavement of indigenous people, not of African people.
Yeah.
Right? But then they'll say African slaves when they tell the story. But then, you know, they're talking about Portugal, and they're talking about indigenous population of Portugal. Right? The bull also conferred exclusive trading rights to Portuguese between Morocco and the Indies, with the rights to conquer and convert the inhabitants, a significant concession given by Nicholas in a brief issue to King Alfonso in 1454 extended the rights granted to existing territories to all those that might be taken in the future. It is argued that collectively the two bulls issued by Nicholas gave the Portuguese the rights to acquire slaves along the African coast by force or trade. Right? The concessions given to them were confirmed by the bulls issued by Pope, right, you could probably write this down, Pope Calixtus, Calixtus the third, Inter Caetera Kquae, Sixtus the Fourth, Attorney Regis, Aeterniregis, 1481. Leo the 10th, 1514, and they became the models for subsequent bulls by Pope Alexander the 6th, and the bull is called Eximiae, Eximiae, Devotionis, Devotionis. That's 1493. And then Inter Caetera, 1493. And Dudum, Dudum, Siquuidem, 1493, when he conferred similar rights to Spain in relation to the newfound lands in the Americas. Some historians view these bulls as extending the theological legacy of Pope Urban II's crusades to justify European colonization and expansionism, accommodating both the marketplace and the yearnings of the Christian soul. Dum diversus was essentially geographically unlimited in its application, perhaps the most important papal act relating to Portuguese colonization. Dum diversus provided, "We grant you, kings of Spain and Portugal, by these present documents, with our apostolic authority, full and free permission to invade, search out, capture, and subjugate the Saracens and pagans and any other unbelievers and enemies of Christ, whether they may be, as well as their kingdoms, duchies, counties, principalities, and other property, and to reduce their persons into perpetual slavery." Right? So the apostolic authority that the so-called popes claim to have, who were Roman Catholics, right, was to invade, search out, capture, subjugate the Saracens or Moors, and pagans or Moors, or other unbelievers, Muslims or Jews or whoever that didn't agree with Christendom, right, whether they may be, as well as wherever they may be, as well as their kingdoms, duchies, counties, principalities, and other property, and reduce their persons into perpetual slavery. But then the people who claim that they were taken into slavery and, you know, European enslaved them or whatever, claim to be Christian, which was created by a Roman general, right? And that's, you know, that's what we're talking about when we talk about the dead carcass, right? That they should know better, because, you know, if they had any common sense, you know, they would research. Well, first of all, they would look in the Bible and see that Christian's not mentioned in there.
Exactly.
Right? And just be done with it.
Yeah.
Call yourself Roman Catholic, right? And then now go research Roman Catholicism. And then when you go research Roman Catholicism, you're going to bump into all these papal bulls about these people claiming that, you know, you guys are pagan and we're going to steal your land and all that, right? Right? And then start challenging all those guys on the pulpit that's trying to swindle you and telling you don't question nothing. And every time you have a question, they, you know, right? Blasphemy, right? 1635, Pope Urban VIII formally excommunicated anyone still holding Indian slaves. By this time, however, the doctrine of discovery was deeply rooted and led nonetheless to the conquest of non-Christian lands and people in every corner of the world. Although the U.S. was founded on freedom from such tyranny, the idea that white people and Christians had certain divine rights was nevertheless ingrained in the young nation's policies. The slave trade, for example, and centuries of violence against quote-unquote black people depended upon the idea that non-whites were less than human. The theft of Native American lands requires a similar justification. 1823 Supreme Court case Johnson versus McIntosh. In 1775, Thomas Johnson and a group of British investors bought a tract of land from the Piankishaw Indians. During the Revolutionary War, this land was taken from the British and became part of the U.S. in the city of Illinois. In 1818, the U.S. government sold part of the land to William McIntosh, a citizen of Illinois. This prompted Joshua Johnson, the heir to one of the original buyers, to claim the land through a lawsuit, which he later lost. U.S. Supreme Court. In a unanimous decision, Chief Justice Marshall wrote that the Christian European nations had assumed complete control over the lands of America during the Age of Discovery. Upon winning independence in 1776, he noted the U.S. inherited authority over these lands from Great Britain, notwithstanding the occupancy of the natives who were heathens. Heathens is another term that they use a lot. According to the ruling, American Indians did not have any rights as independent nations, but only as tenants or residents of U.S. land. Right? So American Indians, right, which is a fraud.
Yeah.
Right? No different than Hill, Snipes, and all of them, Red Fox, and right, fraud, did not have any rights. And this is 17 something. Like 17 something, they're telling you that American Indians did not have any rights as independent nations. Right? Why? Because they have no status calling yourself geographical location. Right? Native American, American Indian, you know, Aboriginal Indians or whatever. If you're not identifying yourself as a nation, or if you have no status, then you're stateless, and then there's nothing for you. You're up for conquering. You're up for slavery, you know, and it's perpetual. Because now it gets to the point where from an that's why when like when we were talking about the I'm not a minority, right? And then people who say claiming that they're not a minority, you ask them what their name is, they're gonna tell you there's Johnson and Jeffries and whatever. You're gonna give a slave name, which means you're a minority. So from an international perspective, nationals can't deal with stateless people. Because that's a war crime on the national. To deal with stateless people. Right? That's why we go hard at people when they say they're black and say that they're, because it's, you know, it's nothing personal, but we're dealing with law. And law is specific. Law is not vague. So don't take offense when Moors tell you that you're not black and you're not Negro, you're not African, you're not, it's nothing to be offended about. It's about change your status then. Like, just simple as that. Just change your status. You know what I mean? Instead of making up stuff why you don't want to change your status, how about just change your status? Now let's talk about the names and whatever, because you know that's why Koreans gonna come in the, you know, black community, stateless community, set up a store, and then have all those people just in and out that store spending dollars. Church is gonna come in the black community, set up in there, people just going in and out, giving dollars. This man's leaving, you know, every Sunday with, you know, bags of money, right? Liquor store is gonna come in the, you know, black community, right? You know, like it was like when we were doing the Feed the Hungry, and we were walking on Church, right? And then we got to Wesley, and then we were walking down Wesley, and then somebody was like, "Hey, you never notice how come there's no liquor stores in gay communities? Only wine stores?"
That's true. No LCBOs.
No LCBOs. in
Only wine.
gay community.
Yeah.
Only wine.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And you know, that's their thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's a status issue,
Yeah.
right? Because liquor apparently is, you know,
See how people act.
that's, you know, yeah. There's only certain people, certain mentality that drink spirits.
Yeah.
Because common sense people know that, you know, fire water.
Yeah.
You know, enough people learn from the Indians about fire water. You know, play with fire water.
Yeah.
That's not you know, let's go buy some fire water and go to the club.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's a
You know what I mean?
spiritual thing.
It's a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right?
You know, I was
1845. Say one of those ones, huh?
coming. I was coming.
One of those ones. 1845, Manifest Destiny. In 1845, a Democratic leader and prominent editor named John O'Sullivan gave the Doctrine of Discovery a uniquely American flavor when he coined the term Manifest Destiny to defend U.S. expansion and claims to new territories. The right of our manifest destiny to overspread and to possess the whole of the continent which Providence has given us for the development of the great experiment of liberty is right such that of the tree to the space of the air and the earth suitable for full expansion of its principle and destiny of growth. The idea of manifest destiny was publicized in newspapers and debated by politicians. It further descends among U.S. citizens, right, corporate people, right, U.S. citizens, U.S. citizens, people have no status, so you have no say. All those debates and, you know, articles written by this guy who's a naturalized European citizen from somewhere, and all these people who are debating when they have no status, because, you know, you ask them who they are. Oh yeah, I'm a United States citizen. Well, that's private corporation, so you're really an employee of a corporation, and you don't even know what's going on. You're just getting game, right? It further descends among U.S. citizens of an inevitable or natural right to expand the nation and to spread freedom and democracy, though only those deemed capable of self-government, which certainly did not include blacks or Native Americans. You say that?
What rhyme made it worse?
It's all good, yo. Whether called the Doctrine of Discovery or Manifest Destiny, the principles. Oh, see, you got that thing? You got it. Okay.
Talk about it. About the
All right. Peace, yo. Huh? Yeah, it's gonna be June, yo, early June.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
So we can come.
Yeah, exactly. Whether called the Doctrine of Discovery or Manifest Destiny, the principles that stimulated U.S. thirst for land have been disastrous for Native Americans, African Americans, Mexicans, and many others both in North America and abroad whose life, liberty, and property as a result of U.S. expansionism. The history of Christian Islam, fam, the history of Christian law helps us to understand how our leaders, many considered heroes and role models today, undertook monstrous acts in the name of liberty. This insight into the prevailing ideas of the day, however, does not excuse their behavior. Some have truly been misled by the ideals of Christian discovery, but others acted knowingly out of self-interest, greed, and bigotry. Even as far back as Columbus, however, there were religious and political leaders as well as ordinary citizens who knew better and worked against racism, colonization, and slavery. When the Indian Removal Act of 1830 came up for debate in Congress, for example, New Jersey Senator Theodore Frelinghuysen, a strong believer in Christian compassion, led a bold attack with a 6-hour speech that extended over 3 days. Jeez. Frelinghuysen predicted terrible suffering and therefore argued to uphold the independence of the Cherokee Nation. Many other members of Congress, including Tennessean Davy Crockett, fought against the act. Though it passed in both houses, 40% of Congress, 116 out of 246 members voted in opposition to the bill. You want to go, you might want to try to research that 6-hour speech.
Yeah.
Theodore Frelinghuysen, Frelinghuysen, first name Theodore, New Jersey Senator. It is tempting to view the problems of the past as ancient history, long resolved and no longer relevant to our lives. The effect of manifest destiny, however, continue today. American Indian nations are still in court over land disputes, and countless native people suffer from extreme poverty and other social problems as a result of past policies. September 11th and the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq have ignited age-old debates about U.S. objectives. Though the public discourse no longer includes terms such as expansion, discovery, and destiny, discussions about globalization, preemptive war, and the responsibilities of the world's only superpower echo familiar themes. It is perhaps fitting that this dialogue ensues as the country commemorates the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition. Go back to Dr. York again. Or Corps of Discovery, which paved the way for U.S. expansion. The anniversary presents an important opportunity to pay tribute to the victims and survivors of Indian genocide and learn about contemporary native cultures, issues, works against prejudice, blah, blah, blah. Right? Because once we start getting into the whole American Indians and Indian genocide and all that, stateless, and, right? No different than black, colored, Ethiopian, African, all those properties are up for, being destroyed or being liquidated, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just what they do with the property, right?
What they're forced to do now, because these corporations hold money.
Yeah, they owe big money. Oh yeah, right. So we're gonna go back to quickly. We're gonna go back to Blue Blood, right? 1834. So after 1834, right? Translating Spanish, Sangre Azul, claimed by certain families of Castile as uncontaminated by Moorish or Jewish admixture, probably from the notion of the visible veins of people of fair complexion, right? Blue bloods, right? So there's this article that I found called "The Blue Blood is Black Blood," right? So they're just saying that blue blood has nothing to do with, any mixtures of Moorish or Jewish people, just straight pale people, right? So blue blood is black blood theory, 1500 to 1789. This theory sets out to prove that the controversies around the hatred against blacks, for lack of a better term, and the result of the fact that European whites, right? So you see how they distinguish when they're talking, right? They don't just say we're white, and
European
the European whites,
they have to add the
right? They got to add the status to it for themselves, because they know that it's not about being stateless, right?
Exactly.
Because if they just say whites, then we can do the same thing that they did to us.
Exactly.
Say, oh, you guys are whites, okay, well, you guys are infidels, then we can take the land back under the Doctrine of Discovery.
See?
Because we were really the first popes, and right now the pope from Argentina, okay, well, he's Asiatic.
Yeah.
So there's an Asiatic pope right now, the Asiatic president,
Right?
right?
Full
Right?
circle.
Even though they pulled a good one on the people with the whole pope thing, because they were trying to push this dark skin.
Yeah.
There's gonna be black pope and black pope, and then they slide this guy in, and then everybody just I guess there's no black pope now when he's from Argentina.
Because I knew something went wrong there, but I didn't research it.
Yeah,
but
right.
I knew something went wrong.
Argentinian is a pope, right? So the Asiatic pope right now, right? Since 1670 are the result of the fact that European whites were once ruled and despotically oppressed by blacks, who also brought them civilization, right? So once ruled and despotically oppressed by blacks, who also brought them civilization, right? Same thing we're talking about the Moorish conquerors of Spain that brought universities, and are you conquering and you're bringing stuff, right? These blacks were the highest European blue blood nobility, and the European royal families we today, due to revisionism, think of as whites. In looks, they were a fixed mulatto race with brown and black complexions, and some looking more African, Asian, or white. The whites were looked down upon and were called the Greys or pink. To maintain color, a sign of their pure noble blood, they practiced strict intermarriage. This system of society can be compared to South Africa apartheid, when a supposedly superior white minority oppressed the black and colored majority, and can thus be defined as reversed apartheid, which system also benefited the non-noble blacks, European blacks, who were given opportunities to study and were given high positions. All the great names of this era belong to the black and colored group, so Europe during this period can also be defined as a black civilization. The word Edel, E-D-E-L, noble, means true, so the European nobility considered itself as true Europeans. From archaeology, we know that 45,000 years ago, after the melting of the ice sheets from the Second Ice Age, and when Europe became habitable, the first human inhabitants were Africans, the Grimaldi man. But it's claimed by Eurocentrist scientists that 6,000 years ago, these blacks became whites because they suddenly lost the ability to synthesize melanin, which they did not need anymore as protection to the sun. Yet, Afrocentrists point out that whites originated in Central Asia, descendants of albinos who had once left Africa and moved into Europe only 6,000 years ago. Their white skin better allowed them to synthesize vitamin K for strong bones, so they thrived in a sunless environment. As the first humans were blacks, we need to understand how humans became white and which role albinism played in this natural process. So mentally, we're gonna, every time you hear black, you replace it with more, and then every time you hear European, or white, you replace it with European, right? Part of the controversy and confusion is due to the definition of blacks. Who or what is black? The Eurocentric approach rests heavy on biometrics and facial traits. It prefers to regard blacks as very different from whites and as primitive humans. This leaves no room for approaching blackness as a uniting identity, a culture, and a way of life. The finding of this blue blood theory was hampered by the ideological racism of the previous researchers, whose intent was to deny the existence of any role of blacks in history. Right? Blacks were they are the one to be defined as descendants of slaves. According to later revisionist Christian theology, blacks were even born to be slaves, and were already slaves ruled by highly improbable white pharaohs to build pyramids. To understand a civilization, one needs to intellectually approach this in an intellectual product by a thinking people. The shape of their nose and lips does not inform us of their identity or what they are capable of. In researching the nature of civilization, we focus on how the people self-identified by understanding their own symbolism in art, literature, and heraldry. There is no known images of blacks in prehistoric era, but some skeleton and descriptions of some bog mummies. These mummies have disappeared as part of the revisionism to hide European black roots from the historical era, which for West Europe started around 50 BC. We know that Caesar brought African warriors, the Garamanti, to fight the Germanic peoples and protect the borders of the Roman Empire. They eventually settled along the Danube and the Rhine were far into the 18th century, where dark-looking communities were found. Like some parts of the Black Forest, Pays de Vaud, Guyenne, and northern France, Nassau seems to cling to the notion that Europe has always been white. European immigrants from these areas who arrived in America during the 17th century were called Black Dutch. Right? And then that's called, black means pale, and right? In America, 1691 signaled the year when the color line against blacks was introduced, and centuries later some blacks claimed descendants of these black Europeans to escape enslavement or racial segregation. There does not exist a clear or definitive reason why American blacks were suddenly discriminated against. This episode serves at least to prove that there were blacks in Europe until the 17th century who apparently escaped becoming white 6,000 years ago. So Charles II Stuart, called the Black Boy and described as a tall black man. Charles II, by the grace of God, King of England, Scotland, France, Ireland, defender of the faith, right? And this is him right here.
Okay.
Right? And then you see the nose, right? The hair or whatever, you know what I mean, right? From Franklin So's Black in Antiquity, we learned that during the classical era, blacks were part of the European Mediterranean civilizations and were described and depicted in a positive fashion. There was no color line, as color was rightly understood as an adaptation to environment, which did not speak to a person's merit. Racism was projected on the classical era by 20th century American researchers from the Jim Crow era, when white America openly waged a racist war against its blacks. Right? So prior to the 20th century, right, the whole black and white was straight fraud.
Yeah.
Not dealt with, nobody talked about it, there wasn't even anything that came up or whatever, right? Phillips II of Habsburg, this guy is more like a brother, even though it's a black and white picture, right? And then Jonah DeWitt. Okay, so everybody knows about the status issue, right? Except Negro, black, colored people, right? For some reason, we don't know about the status issue. The status issue is something that we don't really, we don't get it, or they don't teach it in church, right? But it's something that is not really known, right? So statelessness. Statelessness is an international problem in which an individual has no formal or protective relationship with any state. This might occur, for example, if a person's parents are nationals of separate countries and the mother's country rejects all offspring of mothers married to foreign fathers, but the father's country rejects all offspring born to foreign mothers. Although this person may have an emotional national identity, he may not be the national of any state. As of the 23rd of September 2011, there are 40 states which ratified or acceded to the convention: Albania, Armenia, Australia, Austria, Azerbaijan, Bolivia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Benin, Brazil, Canada, Chad, Costa Rica, Croatia, Czech Republic, Denmark, Germany, Guatemala, Republic of Ireland, Kiribati, Latvia, Lesotho, Liberia, Libya, Netherlands, New Zealand, Niger, Nigeria, Norway, Panama, Romania, Rwanda, Senegal, Serbia, Slovakia, Swaziland, Sweden, Tunisia, United Kingdom, and Uruguay. Dominican Republic, France, and Israel signed but did not ratify the convention. and U.S. didn't sign. Right? What convention? The Convention on the Reduction of Statelessness. 1961. So since 1961, they recognized that there was statelessness going on because of, you know, this whole Doctrine of Discovery, and then people being denationalized, put in positions of servitude, so they're stateless. So now there's all these stateless people, just stateless people everywhere. So they came and said, okay, we're gonna have a convention in order to reduce statelessness, right? Done in New York, the 30th of August, 1961, right?
And America didn't show up.
And the thing was in New York,
and America didn't
and
show up.
right, well, U.S. didn't show up. Right? Which now you can see what, you know, why they don't have to show up, because U.S. private corporation, and they don't.
The people
right?
don't know, so they won't show up. They don't care.
Right? Convention on the Reduction of Statelessness. The contracting states, acting in pursuance of Resolution 896, adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations on the 4th of December 1954, considering it desirable to reduce statelessness by international agreement, have agreed as follows. Article 1. A contracting state shall grant its nationality to a person born in its territory who would otherwise be stateless. Such nationality shall be granted at birth, by operation of law, or upon an application being lodged with the appropriate authority, by or on behalf of the person concerned in the matter prescribed by the national law. Subject to the provisions of paragraph 2 of this article, no such application may be rejected. So basically they say they can't deny you a nationality, right? A contracting state which provides for the grant of its nationality in accordance with paragraph B of this paragraph may also provide for the grant of its nationality by operation of law at such age and subject to such conditions as may be prescribed by national law. 2. A contracting state may make the grant of its nationality in accordance to, you know, whatever, right? 3. Notwithstanding the provisions of paragraphs 1 and 2 of this article, a child born in wedlock in the territory of a contracting state whose mother has a nationality of the state shall acquire at birth that nationality. 4. A contracting state shall grant nationality. 5. A contracting state may grant nationality in accordance with the provisions of whatever. Article 2. A founding territory in the foundling found in the territory of a contracting state shall, in absence of proof to the contrary, be considered to have been born in that territory of parents possessing a nationality of the state. So the whole thing about the reduction of statelessness is dealing with having a nationality. That's how you get out of statelessness. Right? That's how you get out of the dead status. Right?
Because at the end of the day, state is an embodiment of people.
Right.
So that's like a nationality. So if you're stateless, there's no nation.
Right, exactly. There's no nation, hence no nationality.
Right.
Right? So May 23rd, 2013, Iranian lawmaker Mohammad Javad Khalivand has criticized the Canadian government for the violation of rights of indigenous people, noting that Ottawa is the worst violator of human rights in the world. The Canadian government has long been among the so-called Western advocates of human rights. Nevertheless, it tops the list of human rights violators, he stated. Khalivand added that Canadian Aboriginals are deprived of their basic rights, including the right to education and participation in the public sphere, calling on the international organizations to break their silence and stop the organized violence by the Canadian government against the ethnic community. Ethnic community. But he's talking about rights of indigenous people. Right? So, and again, they're You know, they can't really come out and say,
what I say,
Negro, black,
yeah.
colored people, we're talking about you,
Yeah.
but they're gonna say little terms and little words, right?
Yeah, of course.
In hopes that we pick up on it, because
Yeah.
they know that Noble Drew Ali came, 1913, told us proclaim our nationality or whatever, right? Because they study, right? On top of that, if he's Iranian lawmaker, Mohammed Javed Kolivand, you know, he knows about the Ottoman Empire, he knows about,
Lawmaker.
he knows what's up, right? But these dark-skinned people or the ethnic groups of Canada, right? The government of Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper is under criticism for its violations of the rights of Indigenous peoples in Canada. Many of Canada's natives live in poor conditions with unsafe drinking water, inadequate housing, addiction, and high suicide rates, right? So many of Canada's natives, right? So now coming to the thing with,
There we
you know,
go.
Saracen, infidel, heathen, whatever, you know, they change it up, right? Because they can't just come out, yeah, they can't just come out and say Negro, black, colored people.
Yeah.
But if they did that, that's an international war crime
Right there.
on them
On them, yeah.
for exposing, you know, that they know about denationalization and they know that, you know, people we're supposed to be respected and all that. When we go ask majority of the people that live in poor conditions with unsafe drinking water, inadequate housing, or whatever, that's our people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not natives, because
No.
you know they're gonna go. They have their little tax card. They could at least not pay tax.
Yeah, at least, yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, they got their perks,
At
right?
least.
They have their perks, right? In a report released on December 19, 2012, Amnesty International asks Canada to address human rights abuses in the country, particularly with respect to the rights of Indigenous peoples. May 1st, 2013, Canada's human rights record just underwent a peer review process under the United Nations Human Rights Council. A number of organizations, including CFS, have issued this media release with updated information from Geneva. Right? And this was March to May. Right? We go a little further back. April 2013. World community urges comprehensive response to human rights violations facing Indigenous people in Canada. So again, everybody in the world knows that the dark-skinned people are the Indigenous people, right? If you go to Asia,
Yeah.
it's the Dalits and the Untouchables and all those people who are the Indigenous people, and then you have the lighter ones saying that, oh yeah, well those guys are, you know, they're dirty, that's why they're black
Same thing in
and
the Philippines.
whatever. Same thing in the Philippines,
Same
right?
thing.
I heard that there was a brother talking about doing studies on Asian history in school, right? And when he was doing the studies on Asian history, they always show, anytime they show the Asian people, they always show the mine workers,
Okay.
right? And then they justify them being dark because they work in the mines
Yeah.
and whatever, they're dirty people, right?
Wow.
Right? And
That
people,
extent,
like to that extent,
wow.
right? You know what I mean? And then it wasn't until he went there and he seen some dark-skinned Chinese people
Wow.
that were working on mines or whatever, and he was like, and you know the thing, it just hit him, like, oh my gosh, that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Look at
These
that,
dark-skinned
man.
people, these are Indigenous people,
Yeah,
right?
people.
So everybody knows, right? Many of Canada's closest diplomatic allies and trading partners are urging the federal government to do more to address the serious human rights issues facing First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. On Friday, Canada's human rights record was examined in a peer review process under the United Nations Human Rights Council. During the process, called the Universal Periodic Review, more than 80 states offered comments and recommendations on Canada's human rights record. Right? More than 80 states came up with documented facts. Why? Because they push this whole Canada's multicultural. Come over here. Then they come over here, they get their ass kicked, and then they go back to their country and they make complaint. Yo, we went to Canada, these guys are straight violating everybody. And, you know, they don't do nothing because international law. So, you know, they got to do their writing, take their little thing, you know what I mean? Send it to the Geneva, and then they send it back, and then they send the letter again, and then they play this game. Because, you know, everybody also knows that Canada's, you know, it's not a colony, it's not a democracy, it's not, you know, like, what is it? Right? It's in North America. Like, what is it? Right? What is it? You know? If the Queen runs here, welcome, she's not over here.
Right.
You know what I mean? How come you know, the right hand man of the Queen is the Governor General, but the Governor General is saying that, oh yeah, well, we're the de facto head of state for Canada. You know, we're not the legit
we're not the legit
head of state. You know, we're just the sit-in.
administrators.
So yeah, we're just the administrators. And then it comes back again to the whole Doctrine of Discovery, right? And placing your pawns on the board and your knights and your rooks or whatever to protect the Queen.
Yeah.
And once the Queen and the King's protected, then, you know, everybody's happy. Everything could run nice, right?
That's all it is.
That's all it is, right? The vast majority of state comments related to persistent human rights violations experienced by indigenous peoples in Canada. These include violation of land rights, inequalities in education, health, drinking water, and sanitation, food insecurity, control over lands and resources, and racial discrimination. More than 20 states raised specific concerns about high levels of violence against indigenous women in Canada. New Zealand, Norway, Switzerland, and others urged Canada to adopt a comprehensive and coordinated national action plan to end such violence. Ireland called on Canada to also conduct an independent national inquiry into missing indigenous women and establish effective databases. Australia recommended that the aboriginality of victims of gender-based violence be accurately recorded. The United States noted that on a per-child basis, federal funding for child and family services in First Nations communities has fallen to less than 80% of that provided by provincial and territorial governments for services in predominantly non-Aboriginal communities. The United States urged Canada to ensure parity for funding and services between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal communities. So, and now United States is the boss of Canada.
Yeah.
So United States is throwing Canada under the bus, right? When they sanction them, right? And it's not even the Queen, right?
That's how business runs.
That's how business runs. The United Kingdom, Finland, and Germany were among the states that highlighted the importance of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Canada endorsed the UN Declaration in November 2010, but has denied any obligation to implement its provisions. Right? So they endorse it, they signed on to it, but because of the statelessness of the people, they don't have to implement any United Nations declarations.
Right.
Because the people are stateless.
There's no nation.
Canadian's not a nationality.
Right.
That's an employee position.
Right.
So you know what? So what are we really gonna enforce?
I can't enforce nothing.
Right? You know, like what are we gonna enforce? How are we gonna enforce a UN declaration for the rights of indigenous people when the people that we're dealing with are Negro, black, colored, you know, whatever they call themselves, right? A number of states highlighted the importance of open collaboration with UN experts like the Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Indigenous People and respect for recommendations from UN treaty bodies. So that's somebody to write down. Special Rapporteur. Rapporteur. Right? That's maybe for Moors. Because the Special Rapporteur is a UN expert on Aboriginal rights. Right? So when Moors have an issue and then they're addressing the issue in writing, this is somebody who has to be now on. This is somebody to put on the CC list, right? That's a new person to add to the CC list. I'm sure they have an email address or whatever, and send them some documents. Let them know that, yeah, we do have a nationality and they're violating us. Now let's see what type of action, how things are going to change, right? Inequalities in access to drinking water and sanitation systems were also noted. Norway, for example, recommended that Canada take measures to ensure that all Canadians have full and equal access to clean water and sanitation. Canada has previously examined under the Universal Periodic Review in 2009. Many of the same concerns were raised at that time. Although Canada acknowledged the underlying principles of state concerns, actions to date on their specific recommendations remain inadequate. The report of the latest review will be released by the United Nations on Tuesday, April 30th. Right, so there's a report on the latest review of the United Nations on Canada's position. Right? It's probably going to be the same stuff again. Right? April 13th. A spectacle of hypocrisy and farce. North Korea, Iran attacked Canada's human rights record at UN forum. So everybody's putting Canada on blast right now.
Even all countries like Iran.
Even countries like Iran and these people, right? Right?
Kim Jong-il put Canada on blast.
Right? Canada was the focus of critical attacks on its human rights record at a prominent United Nations forum by a cluster of countries with dubious human rights records, including North Korea, Iran, and China. The delegation from North Korea lamented, "We have serious concerns about continued violations of the right of peaceful assembly and freedom of expression, torture, and other ill treatments, racism, and xenophobia." 3 UN reporters on their way to probe Canada's human rights record. Right? Now remember, these people aren't stupid people. They know that they're coming over here and Canada's a private corporation and they're just playing the role to make it look like, they're doing something. Right? And they know that these people in this jurisdiction that are falling under a Canada Act and all that type of stuff, saying, "Oh yeah, that's the Constitution of Canada." Everybody knows the only Constitution for the whole entire Americas is the United States of America Constitution, right? And everybody else that has a Constitution, it's a state Constitution. So Cuba's a state of the United States of America, so they have a Constitution, right? Venezuela's a state, Brazil's a state, Peru's a state, Chile's a state. All these are states of the United States of America, right? Morocco is a state of the United States of America that they call Canada and U.S, right? So when Noble Drew Ali said, what's your nationality, Moorish American, right? He was connecting us to the Moroccan state.
Exactly.
And in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we have a constitution, which is domestic. Just like Cuba's constitution is domestic, because when people hear Moorish Divine and National Movement, they're thinking of organization, when Moorish Divine and National Movement is the nation.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the nation.
Right.
That's why that wasn't incorporated. You know, when you read the literature, you know the Moorish Holy Temple of Science was incorporated as a civic organization.
Mm-hmm.
The Moorish Science Temple of America was incorporated as a religious corporation. Okay, Moorish Divine and National Movement is the nation. So he was connecting us back to the nation. That's why we have a nationality card and all that. You know, saying that you have your name on it, your picture on it. You know, that's your ID. And like Sister Roz was breaking down, yeah, that might not be corporate government ID, like a license and whatever, but it's government ID.
It's a state
You know what I mean? It's state ID. It might not be a corporate state, but it's still state ID, right? Canada approved 3 visits starting as early as this summer for the UN Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, the UN Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, and the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. Canada has a track record of being a human rights leader at home and around the world. Canada will accept these visits. They will happen later this year. Joseph Lavoie, a spokesman for John Baird, Minister of Foreign Affairs, told National Post. Oh yeah, there's another name to write down. Minister of Foreign Affairs, John Baird.
John Baird?
Yeah, B-A-I-R-D.
Okay.
And you're gonna go get his email and question him, because you know, if Canada has a track record of being a human rights leader,
right,
then all these people, you know, police kicking their ass or whatever,
yeah, what's up with that?
they should be writing to John Baird. Like, you know, what's up? You know, the rapporteurs came, you know.
Yeah.
Like the UN sent the special envoy to come talk to you guys about your practices. You know, as being that you're a public servant, you know, you need to know what's up. But, you know, don't go there talking about, you know, your Frank Jeffries, you know, in the I'm a black man, and you guys violated my rights as a black man, and I need you guys to, you know, because they're not going to reply to you. Or they're going to reply to you with something that you don't like to hear, you don't want to hear, and just get you
back in that cycle again.
Get you back in the stateless position, right? Iran rallied against violations of human rights by Canadian government, including child sexual exploitation and trafficking.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Trafficking. Child exploitation. So could everybody with a birth certificate be child exploitation?
Of course.
Right? Since that's fraudulent document, you know, you're creating bonds and then selling bonds all across the world or whatever. All right, that's straight exploitation. Okay, and if they're selling, and if they're selling the bond from the birth certificate, and the birth certificate has a name of a so-called person on it, whether the person's corporate, natural, or whatever, the fact that it's a person on that card, and then they're selling that card, isn't that trafficking?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Right? Right. The right of food, discriminatory law and regulation against indigenous people. Okay, hold on. Let's read this part again. Iran rallied against violations of human rights by the Canadian government, including child sexual exploitation and trafficking, the right to food, discriminatory law and regulation against indigenous people and minority groups. Right? So they're throwing everybody in the pot right now as getting abused by Canadian government, right? Including Muslim, including Muslim, which is Moors, Arab, which is Moors, right? And African communities, right? China's delegate complained of widespread racial discrimination in Canada. Pakistan was dismayed by Canada's increased poverty and unemployment rate among immigrant communities. Why is there increased poverty and unemployment rate among immigrant communities? Well, the European newspaper, Toronto Street News.
Right? This is for the European community.
This is the Europeans who fight for justice or whatever out here.
Okay.
Right? And they had an article in here. Oh, Harper's appointee destroys human rights. Former human rights boss cast as a tyrant. So it's not that people don't know that there's severe abuse of rights going on here,
For sure.
right? Severe, right? Russia expressed alarm over Canada's police actions of torture and cruelty against peaceful demonstrators. Right?
Yeah.
All that came from G20. When they went nuts at G20, the whole world was watching that. Right?
You have to understand, people in other places in the world would think, maybe in my country, but not in Canada. You live in Somalia, you think, okay, yeah, in Somalia, possible. Canada, no way, not happening.
Exactly. Canada faced the critiques Friday in Geneva during its command appearance before the Human Rights Council Universal Periodic Review, which looks at all UN members' human rights records over 4 years. The irony of and irritation with the criticism was not lost on Canadian officials. While we look forward to talking about our human rights record, we also take the UN's review with a grain of salt, a government official told the National Post. Some of the countries reviewing Canada, like Iran, have abhorrent human rights records. This is a country that hangs guys and stones women. Some of the countries reviewing Canada, like Iran, have abhorrent human rights records. The process turned the UN's important work of monitoring international human rights into a spectacle of hypocrisy and farce, said the Geneva-based monitoring group UN Watch. The continued subversion of the human rights systems whereby thugs, murderers, and rapists purport to judge the human rights record of a liberal democracy undermines the following principles and credibility of the United Nations, said Hillel Noor, a Canadian-born lawyer who directs UN Watch. The UN squandered a golden opportunity to contribute to the promotion and protection of human rights in Canada, he said. It's the fox guarding the chickens, with the world's worst tyrants abusing a legitimate process to deflect attention from their own sordid practices. Right? So the same thing, you know, the Canadian troops are going over in Iran or whatever, going over Middle East, quote unquote, and all these places, right? To institute democracy over there because, you know, they have terrorists running their country. So they have to go over there and help them bring in the form of government that is more suitable to the people and whatever. And then nobody doesn't look up democracy to see that it comes from demos, which means it's, you know, mob rule, right? And you're pretty much setting yourself up for martial law, right? And then those people are going to complain and say, well, don't worry about us stoning women and all that stuff. You guys are doing whatever. Canada saying, well, you guys stone women. Those guys say, well, when all of them are pushing democracy.
Yeah.
Right? Which is fraudulent government in itself.
Yeah.
It's fraudulent government, right? So they talked a lot about the UN Declaration of Rights. We're going to go to infinite power of liberty, the sovereign spirit of indigenous patriotism by Grand Shechem Herusu El, right? So you can go look that one up, right? Infinite power of liberty, right? And we're just going to read some of these. You know, you can get this online too. It's not necessarily, you know, I mean, it's a good read as far as the book, but the UN Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People you can get online, right? So Part 1, Article 1. Indigenous people have the right to full and effective enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms recognized in the Charter of the United Nations and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and International Human Rights Law. Article 2. Indigenous individuals and peoples are free and equal to all other individuals and peoples in dignity and rights and have the right to be free from any kind of adverse discrimination, in particular that based on their indigenous origin or identity. Article 3. Indigenous people have the right to self-determination by virtue of the right they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. Article 4. Indigenous people have a right to maintain and strengthen their distinct political, economic, social, and cultural characteristics, as well as their legal systems, while retaining their rights to participate fully, if they so choose, in the political, economic, social, and cultural life of the state. Article 5. Indigenous people, every indigenous individual has the right to a nationality. Right? And again, going back to Drawley being Cherokee, means he was indigenous, so that means he had the power to not do like the international people and say, oh, we can't tell black people about anything because of international war crime. He was born indigenous, so he has a right to see all the people who he knows that are, you know, claiming to be whatever that they know that they're not, and put them on game. Right, which is what he did. Right, and him doing that was a standard. There was such a standard that the UN put out all these things talking about nationality. They have Convention of Reduction of Statelessness, right? Nobody said he's going to make the European tell the truth. Okay, well, they're telling you. They had a convention to reduce statelessness. And through the whole document, all they're talking about is nationality. Throughout the whole thing, every article mentions nationality in there. You have right to nationality. If your mom is the whatever, nationality. If your dad is your mom's whatever, your nationality. If your child has a whatever, it's nationality. You know, if the government doesn't approve of it or whatever, you still have nationality. Nobody can take it away. Whatever. Right? So they're letting people know that they recognize what the prophet brought. Right? And the people don't want to recognize the prophet when they're talking about nationality through all these things. Right? Okay, Indigenous, Article 8. Indigenous people have the collective and individual right to maintain and develop their distinct identities and characteristics, including the right to identify themselves as indigenous and to be recognized as such. Which is that's the whole point of go join the Moorish Science Temple, proclaim your nationality, get a nationality card, which is the right to identify yourself as indigenous, because you have a card that says, you know, I'm indigenous. Here it is. I don't need an Indian tax exempt card to be Indian. You know what I mean? That card doesn't come from an indigenous person. That card comes from a private corporation. How is a private corporation going to make me indigenous?
Not happening.
Not happening. Right? Indigenous, Article 9. Indigenous peoples and individuals. Right? So it's not just indigenous people. Indigenous people and individuals. Right? Just like it's saying, every indigenous individual has the right to a nationality. So indigenous people and individuals have the right to belong to an indigenous community or nation. So as indigenous, you know, you're still kind of stateless, but at least you're connected to the land. You're connected to at least make some type of claim, right? That's why Drew Ali said, if you don't do anything else, proclaim your nationality. It don't matter if you're a part of the temple or not or whatever. Forget all that. Just know that you're Elbe, and then just go study. Study something. So when they come and they approach you, you can at least stand up on whatever you know and say, okay, well, yo, I'm not, you know, Negro, black, colored, you know, whatever. Right? Because we have a right to belong to an indigenous community or nation in accordance with the traditions and customs of the community or nation concerned. Right? In accordance with the traditions and customs of the community or nation concerned. So the community or nation concerned with regard to the Moors is the Moorish nation. And the customs of the community or nation concerned is Act 1 of the Divine Constitution. The Grand Sheik is empowered to make law and enforce law. And you know, so okay, so we make up our own stuff. Okay, well, the law is, you know, red fezzes, and you have to have a nationality card, you have to pay your dues, you know, Article 1 to 6. That's the customs. What's the traditions? Oh, well, the traditions, we might wear tunic, we might wear, you know, collarless shirts, we might, you know, black shiny shoes, you know, a red tie and whatever, you know, because that's our traditions. As indigenous people, we have a right to just have our own traditions, right? And again, the people coming together and saying, okay, well, that guy is the treasurer, then that lady is, you know, grand whatever, and then he's the grand whatever, and then we all agree that they're the grand whatevers, and then we're just paying dues to them. Okay, that's a community.
That's a state.
That's a state, which we have a right to establish and have as indigenous people. You know, so you can't, right? You can't be, right? So what did we do? Right? We're going to use the example of Move 9 as we close out.
It's the family that got pushed.
Yeah, right. With the bombing in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to use them as an example to show you that you can't try to be a community in a black status or stateless, because they'll just bomb you. Right? They'll just bomb you and treat you like you're nothing. Right? And everybody knows about Move 9. John Africa, Mumuya Abu Jamal, and all that. Everybody knows about Move 9. Right? This is why we have to seriously consider what Noble Ali brought, and that what he brought was for the protection of the people. Because if you don't have a state, if you don't have a nationality, if you don't have a nation, these people don't care about you, and they will eliminate you. They will eliminate you. Right? And you can't wrong them.
Right.
Because nobody wants stateless people around.
Right. Even in scriptures, all you ever read and see is nations. They don't talk about, like,
right.
They do talk about individuals, but it's always that individual is to this nation.
Yeah, but
to that nation.
And even on that level, when they talk about individuals, that individual is the nation.
Yeah.
When they talk about
She's like that cool G.
Moses,
Yeah.
that's not one guy.
Right.
If he lived for 900 years or whatever, Noah lived for 900 years. That one guy lived for 900 years? Or is that a nation of people that lived for 900 years?
It's funny you said that, because the name is not, okay, well, it's not Moses, but whatever they call Moses back then, they gave that name to different individuals. So it's so
right. Right. So MOVE organization, right? Philadelphia-based Black Liberation Group, founded by John Africa, right? MOVE members were vegans, supporters of animal rights, lived communally, frequently engaged in public demonstrations, expressing their, whatever issues or whatever like that, right? Doing that in the black status. So, from the jump, Europeans just sitting back, foot up, just waiting. Just waiting. Like, yo, we know you guys gonna drop the ball. We're just gonna chill and just wait. You guys just, you guys get comfy. Like, get comfy, right? So, founded in 1972, right? Claims that their actions, and again, we're not justifying how they got dealt with, right? We're justifying what happens to stateless people. Exactly. By whoever. It could be your own, it could be European, it could be Asians, whoever. Once you're stateless, like, you don't have any claim, right? Now, a major incident occurred in 78 when police raided their village, and the raid resulted in the death of one officer and the imprisonment of 9 group members, right? Where the MOVE 9 idea comes from, right? After this, the group relocated to Osage Avenue, Osage Avenue, right? Note, Osage is a Native American tribe from the Ohio Valley. So you have these people, the Black Liberation people, calling themselves Africa, but they live on a street that's named after indigenous people of America, the continent that they're on, making rights and making claims or whatever of, police brutality and whatever. And you're living on a street that has an indigenous name. But you're calling yourself African, Africa, which is clearly contradiction. So, they're sitting back. They're just sitting back, right? Right now, mind you, we don't know. Maybe that was a move by move. How about, if we take a street that's indigenous, then they're not going to bother, But status is the first issue at law. First thing somebody's going to look at before they kick your ass is, what's your status? And then, depending on your status, will depend on how you're treated. Right? So in 85, the group made national news when police dropped a bomb on the Osage house from a helicopter in an attempt to end an armed impasse. The explosion killed 11 people, including 5 children, and the group's leader, John Africa. Only 2 occupants survived, Ramona, an adult, and Birdie, a child. In addition, 65 homes were destroyed as the entire block burned. Mayor W. Wilson Good soon appointed an investigative commission called MOVE Commission. It issued its report on May 6, 1986. The report denounced the actions of the city government, right? So the city of Philadelphia, which is a corporation, right? They denounced their actions, stating that dropping a bomb on occupied row houses was unconscionable. No one from the city government was charged criminally. Right? Why? Because when these people do their Doctrine of Discovery, they always find a corporation to hide behind when they do their criminality. No different than certain people are going to call themselves Marrakesh Society, right? Have an online university, charge people thousands of dollars, and then when you're calling them to get some receipts or something like that, you don't even know how to get anything, because you're talking to a corporation. And the people who set that up, they know.
Yeah.
They know that. That's why they get away with that criminality. Because they know that if I call myself a corporation,
There you go.
then that means I can't be liable.
Uh-huh.
No different than anybody else out there starting BP oil. And everybody's blaming, oh yeah, well BP oil shouldn't have been drilling. Well, how about the guy
That's the thing.
that founded that?
Yeah.
How come nobody's calling that guy's name? How come everybody, all the news, oh yeah, BP oil says that they did this. BP oil shouldn't have did that. Why is BP oil drilling in the first place? Why didn't BP oil finish the whatever?
Corporation.
You're talking about corporation. Status is the first issue of law.
Go beat up BP.
Go beat up BP oil. You're gonna go beat up a company for oil spill. You're gonna sue a company for oil spill. When you know an individual can't sue, only a corporation could sue a corporation. Right? So they you know, and again, you know, the mayor who's down with it, you know, the mayor doesn't know what's going on or whatever. You know, the mayor's just playing to get his votes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Right? Just to get his votes.
Yeah.
Right? In 96, civil suit in federal court, a judge ordered the city of Philadelphia to pay $1.5 million to a survivor and relatives of 2 people killed in the incident. The jury found that the city used excessive force and violated its members' constitutional protection against unreasonable search and seizure. Right? Philadelphia was given the term the city that bombed itself. The city that bombed itself. Right? Everything in this whole case, situation, whatever, has to do with status.
Yeah.
What's the status of the individuals involved?
Yeah.
What's the status of the jurisdiction were they in? When they went and got that house, did they claim it as, you know, did they claim the land and then put the property in a trust? Or did they just go move in, pay rent like anybody else and exercise like, you know, yeah, we can do this because, you know, we're fighting for truth and right and justice and all that. When if you have no status, truth, right, justice doesn't mean anything.
You can try, bro.
You can try, but eventually they're going to shut you down.
Yeah.
Right? Gonna shut you down. Same way they shut down Lauryn Hill.
Yeah.
Same way they shut down Wesley Snipes. Same way they shut down on and on. Like whoever, any and everybody that had no status, that was stateless. The Dalits, the people who call themselves Indian, when you're really Aboriginal and indigenous, and you're Moors or children of Moors or whatever. But you know, if they call themselves Moors, then they don't get the check.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
The handout.
They don't get the handout.
Yeah.
And we've been conditioned to take handouts.
Yeah. The handout.
I mean,
What's the status?
what's your status? That's what it comes down to. And when you
Statuses.
start checking out the international community and the position that the international community is taking, right? Where, you know, like when you look at you know, like Hugo, right? Hugo Chavez nationalized the whole of Venezuela, nationalized the people, and they made them nationalize the resources. Now nobody can touch nothing.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
They you know, they tried to do that with Castro, right? Castro was supposed to be an agent because Batista was an agent, and then when, you know, when they got him out the way, they were like, all right, we'll just put in Castro. Castro caught the play. He's like, come on a second, like, you guys are really trying to use me?
Yeah.
Like, hold on a second. You guys
someone else.
no way, you guys should have got somebody else. Bam, do the same thing.
Too late.
Nationalize everything.
No, I'm in here too late.
Right? You know, if you look at the islands now, right? You have Jamaica, Trinidad, and all these places. You know, you have, for example, in Trinidad, you have Eric Williams, who was fighting for rights of people or whatever. House him, get him out the way, bring in some patsy, to come and take off Republic, stop calling it Trinidad and Tobago Republic, sell it to the IMF. Now the IMF has control of that. Same thing we do with Jamaica. You know, Jamaica can't sell their own stuff.
Yeah.
How you grow bananas and you're importing bananas from Mexico?
Yeah.
And you grow bananas there?
No.
What are you talking about? Doesn't make sense because statelessness. Right? But then, you know, the Maroons, you know, they got all the banana trees that they want, right? Right? They have all the banana trees they want, but then nobody doesn't want to buy from them. So everybody, oh, those guys are renegades and they're not trying to be Jamaicans and whatever. When that's really the indigenous people that you should be getting the stuff from because they're the actual legitimate government.
And then you ask them like, yo, why you call yourself Jamaican? That's my nationality.
Yeah.
What are you I just said, yo, why you call yourself Jamaican?
Right.
That's my nationality.
That's their nationality. Right?
Oh man.
So, you know, it's not about being stateless. And then we'll just gotta hit up the prophet and a couple of things that statements that he made, right? And this is Noble Drawley, the last prophet. You get it from
This one.
you get it from Seven Seals Publications, right? Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. Right? I love my people and I desire their unity and mind back to their own free national and divine standards, because day by day they have been violating the national constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. If Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of earth. By all nations of earth that are recognized by the said national government in which they live. 1865. The free national constitutional law that was in force since 1774 declared all men equal and free. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment for the salvation of our people. So there is but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost, and that is through the above statements. I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which is being committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way, and without understanding they have fallen from true light into utter darkness of sin, and there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically in their present condition of their endeavorment in which they themselves try to force on a civilized world. They will not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they fought the Southerner for all these great misuses. But I have traveled to the South, and I have examined conditions there, and it is the works of my people continuously practicing the things which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives the life. And I am hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work to bring my people out of darkness into the marvelous light. From the prophet. Islam. So today we had Mum's the Word. The best kept secrets are best kept sacred. And that's Malachi, York, and Wapian. So make sure you go hit up your boys that you know that are in Wapian and get this, because they're probably not going to give it to you, because the best kept secrets are best kept sacred. And they're playing, some of them are playing the Kool-Aid.
Right. Sweet.
Right. Grand Heru Suit L, Grand Second Heru Suit L, Infinite Power of Liberty. All right. We had the Noble Dwali Last Prophet. Also two Sons of the Green Light. Again, Dr. York. Go ask your boys for this one. Hopefully they don't make you drink the Kool-Aid to get it. Also too, you want to check out Toronto Street News and Toronto Street News, TorontoStreetNews.net. Alright, and Toronto Street News is European independent, I want to say not really conspiracy, but they go hard. Fighting corrupted media lies everywhere.
Okay.
14th year. Toronto Street News, subsidizing homeless, handicapped, underemployed, and the dying. Some of the articles in here. Harper's Canada returns to colonial status. Harper's appointee destroys human rights. CIA, FBI, Boston bomb setup. Studies in propaganda. Free University of Toronto, room 161, University College building.
Okay.
Boston FBI terror to bring about police state.
You're not finding that in Metro.
No, you're not finding this in Metro. Massive JP Morgan bank frauds suppressed. When the truth is suppressed, countries die. U.S. government crimes. Harper Trader Watch. Grassroots Holistic Magazine. Some philosophy, some poetry, articles. Don't drink soda. BVO is bad, and you're drinking it. Your kids are drinking it. Listing all the different sodas you're not supposed to drink. Monsanto, temporary tattoos, make electronic telepathy and telekinesis possible. Why hire 200-pound physical trained police when a 100-pound woman can taser? Retired U.S. Army officer challenges Obama's threat of war against U.S. citizens. So this is kind of, stuff that they talk about. Israeli anti-missile tests blew up Space Shuttle Columbia. Pope Benedict resigns to avoid arrest seizure of church and wealth by Easter. And all them things there. State of Israel forced the sterilization of Ethiopian women. So Toronto StreetNews.net. So Islam to all the Moors online. Give thanks for the time and all that. Oh yeah, and don't forget about this one. Right, the master teacher this Sunday, Skype lecture, Brother Hakeem Bey. If you never heard about Hakeem Bey before, go and Google or YouTube search Journal of the Moorish Paradigm and get your pioneer kicked off. Because he doesn't play. Islam to all the Moors. We just close out with the prayer and that'll be that. Oh, also too, go get the mind. That's Malachi York again. Right? Big book. Get the mind. And also, if you haven't, go get The Alchemist. because it's not a fiction.
That's right.
5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe, Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation. By night and by day, through His holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Islam, Islam, Islam. Peace and love. Hotep, Islam.